One of my favorite things is to make the Bible really, really, really simple. And what could be more simple than the greatest commandment? Someone asked Jesus, "What's the number one commandment?" And Jesus said, "It's to love the Lord your God." And the second is like it, to love your neighbor as yourself. And so that's it. It's the greatest commandment. And every church breathes and lives and is inspired by God's Holy Spirit to love. Last week in the message, we defined love as bringing your gift to build up someone else. So, love isn't the affection, which might come with giving a gift. Love is the action, it's the doing. Like God is a gift giving God. And so we got that definition out of 1 Corinthians chapter 13, which is in the context of gift giving. So that was what love is and how to do it. And today I want to talk just very simply and very briefly about whom are we to love. So, whom are we to love? And here's how I want to do it. Um, by way of introduction, the very first writing and teaching uh, in the early church was called the Teaching of the Apostles, and it was written in the first century around 60 AD, perhaps in Syria. And so it says, how do you do the first commandment? How do you do the first commandment, which is to love God, and the second? And it answers it in a surprising way. Uh, and here it is, it's a teaching out of Matthew chapter 5, answering the question, actually, two questions: whom do I love? And how do I fulfill the first and second commandment? So here it is out of Matthew 5. You have heard it was said, "You shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy." But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so you may be children of your Father in heaven. For he makes the sun rise on the evil and on the good, and he sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? So doesn't everybody love the people who love them back? You're to love the people who don't love you back by bringing a gift that builds them up. So, what are we saying? Well, first of all, Jesus is saying, you've heard a lot of teaching, and all of us have got opinions, and all of us are so connected, many of us on social media, and we hear tons of opinions. Well, they had tons of opinions in Jesus's day too, and they had 400 years of extra stuff after the Old Testament was written. And along came Jesus and said, "Look, you've heard a bunch of stuff. I'm going to tell you what God means by the greatest commandment. And here's what he means: love your enemies, love those whom it's hard to love." And so the teaching of the early church understood this. They knew that Jesus was serious. They knew that Jesus centered on how to do the great commandment in the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 3 through 8. And so here's what I want you to know: the early church, Jesus, were very clear that the way to love God and your neighbor as yourself is to make sure you don't pick and choose whom you love. You don't pick only the people who are easy to love. You love them all. Is it easy? No. Do you feel like it? Maybe, sometimes. And so I want to encourage you this week to pray for an enemy. Pray for someone who's spoken about you. Pray for someone who is bugging you. Pray for them. Uh, Bless them in some kind of way. You know, I met a teacher once who had a real struggle with her other teachers in administration, and that's very common. And particularly now, teachers are really under the gun. It's been a rough experience for all of them. But the teacher environment can be catty, it can be hurtful, and many environments can. But this happened to be a teacher. So I showed her this verse, to love your enemies, to pray for those who use you. And I said, look, here, make a list. um, draw a line down a legal pad, and on the left side, uh, put the names of the people who are injuring you, who are insulting you, who are prickly people. Just list the names, uh, and then on the second side, uh, pick a blessing prayer. Just something to bless them about. For example, find out if they're married, and then pray for that mate in their marriage. Find out maybe their children's names and ask God to bless their children. Find out if there's a struggle, and you'll be surprised if you ask people that you don't get along with, they will tell you. Um, and if you are free to ask if there's something you can pray about, often you will hear something. There might be a health issue. And beloved, there might even be a reason that person is prickly. So let's read it again. I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. For God causes the sun to rise on the righteous and the unrighteous, and the rain to fall on the good and the bad. So that's your assignment this week. God bless.